Good afternoon and welcome to the Midday News. Here's what we have in the bulletin. Surcharge action taken against key officials at the Education Ministry by the Ministry of Finance. Education Ministry outlines plans to deal with learning loss. And later in sports, unbeaten teams put their records on the line as ISA schoolboy football season resumes today with Champions Cup quarterfinals. I'm Giovanni Dennis and here are the details. There has been another increase in COVID-19 hospitalizations in Jamaica amid the fourth wave of the virus. 189 persons are now admitted with the respiratory illness, up from 172 the previous day. 21 are still severely ill, while 4 are critically ill. There are now 3,994 active cases of COVID-19 on the island. In the meantime, there have been 735 new cases of COVID-19 in the last 24 hours from 2,345 samples. This brings the overall case count to 97,066. The positivity rate now stands at 34.3%. 4 new deaths were confirmed yesterday, pushing the death toll to 2,483. In the meantime, 83 more people have also recovered from the virus, increasing the recovery count to 66,147. 2 businesses in St. Mary were damaged in a fire early Tuesday morning. As Cody and Barrett reports, the fire brigade is being lauded for its quick response.
It could have been worse, but the Port Maria Fire Department showed up just in time to contain the blaze of a business complex on Stinnett Street in the capital, resulting in one business escaping damage completely. Shortly after 2:40 a.m., residents saw smoke coming from the building and alerted the fire brigade.
Immediately, the brigade employed 2 jets in operation and used bolt cutter crupper to gain entry. During our firefighting, we realized that we had catch the fire in its early stage, and of course we made sure that the premises along with the unaffected properties was salvaged for the sake of the proprietor.
One of the owners said losses are estimated at more than $200,000.
Curtain and some tablecloth. Right. I'm trying to remember some of the other. I'm not going to remember all of them now till in time. I can't find them. I realize that those are burnt as well.
While the cause of the fire is still not known, one of the owners told us his suspicion.
Based on what I saw a gas bottle. I saw the trail where the gas run and all of that. So it seemed to me as if somebody had gassed the place and set it on fire. That's what it seemed.
Cody and Barrett, TVJ News.
The Education Ministry is again outlining plans to tackle learning loss experienced over the past 2 years due to the COVID-19 pandemic. On Monday, some students returned to face-to-face classes after months of engaging in online learning. Now, speaking during a media briefing on Wednesday, Education Minister Favour Williams said the plans to address learning loss will begin with the early childhood sector.
This year, we will ensure that we do the age 4 assessment of our students in the early childhood sector to see where they are in terms of early literacy and early numeracy, and it's important that we do this assessment so we get a good grasp on the learning loss.
A similar approach will be taken throughout primary schools to allow teachers to customize learning, but secondary schools will see students being placed in groups based on their PEP results from their primary schools.
On the PEP results that the high school would have gotten about the primary school student, it would indicate if there's a need for intervention. So if there's no need for intervention because the child is, operating at a high level, that is on their PEP result. If there's need for intervention, it's there, and for those students who need intense intervention, it is there as well.
A national after-school and homework program will also be implemented. And it's just 3 days since students returned to the classroom, and the president of the Medical Association of Jamaica, MAJ, Dr. Brian James, is still raising concerns. The country has been experiencing an increase in the number of COVID-19 positives, a matter he believes will force school doors to close once again.
Because we understand that there is a dire need for children to get back to face, and we understand and we appreciate that they have lost quite a bit over the past 2 years, and that's almost irretrievable now. But in my view, we should not be having face-to-face.
To other news, Executive Director of the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, Jeanette Calder, believes the corruption claims that faced the Andrew Holness-led administration last year could erode the people's confidence in its leadership. O'Shane Masters has been speaking with the JAMP official about the performance of the government and has this report.
Executive Director of the Jamaica Accountability Meter Portal, JAMP, Jeanette Calder, believes the government has not been taking the procurement breaches that have been highlighted by the Auditor General's Department seriously. She says over the years, the Auditor General has highlighted several breaches, but to date, little has been done to address the issues pointed out, which have led to other public agencies being found wanting. For 2021, breaches were found within the Transport and Mining, the Education and the Economic Growth and Job Creation Ministries. Despite all these cases, Ms. Calder believes the government can regain the confidence of the people. The JAMP Executive Director says, for one, getting the report from the Public Accounts Committee, PAC of Parliament, would send the right message.
The tabling of PAC reports and then putting the discussion and the debate for those reports on the agenda would be a game changer yet again, I believe. It would send a signal that, all right, for the last 6 years, we weren't paying attention to this. 2022 is the year for what the Prime Minister, I believe, calls a new era of accountability.
She's also hoping that during the review of the Integrity Commission Act, the 2 gag clauses will be removed. She says only one has been in the public domain, which refers to when the Integrity Commission is doing an investigation. However, Ms. Calder says the other is of greater concern.
And that is Clause 56.1. And what that law has done, 2 important things. One, that law actually has created what I would call a veil of secrecy or a privilege of privacy when parliamentarians commit an offense under that law, if they are charged and if they're being prosecuted. We who pay the salaries are not allowed to know that an employee who has actually done something that's injurious to our good is being charged and prosecuted. That is what Clause 56.1 of the Act prevents.
She says based on the interpretation of that same Clause 56.1 of the Act, the Auditor General, the media, and civil society have been blocked since October 2020 from accessing the Integrity Commission's database on how public funds have been used below $500,000. She says if there is to be accountability, that must also be reviewed by Parliament in 2022. As for Prime Minister Andrew Holness, Ms. Calder says he needs to send a clearer message that he abhors corruption by how he deals with cases that fall under his ministerial portfolios.
So for my Prime Minister to come into the House and give a minister's statement, for example, on what he is doing to ensure full compliance with all the departments and agencies under his portfolio would be a remarkable way to begin the new year, setting the example and saying, look, if I can do this, then I'm expecting all the other cabinet ministers to follow.
O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
The Ministry of Finance has taken surcharge action against key officials at the Education Ministry. Now, this comes on the heels of a recent Auditor General report into the operations of the Joint Committee for Tertiary Education, JCTE. The Education Ministry is yet to recover $124 million, which was transferred to the committee. The matter was raised at this morning's post-cabinet media briefing. And it's now time for a break here on the Midday News, but please stay with us. We'll have much more when we return. Welcome back. We're continuing the news. Concern is growing locally over the protracted time it is taking the government to declare buffer zones for the cockpit country protected area. The matter is now again at the fore following the recent approval by the Natural Resources Conservation Authority (NRCA) for Noranda bauxite to mine a section of the cockpit country. This will be done under Special Mining Lease 173. Now, at Wednesday's post-cabinet media briefing, State Minister in the Information Ministry Robert Morgan said significant work is needed on the legislation to buffer the zones.
Perfect the legislative aspects of the cockpit country. So while the government is honoring the cockpit country protected area in spirit, and we are almost complete with the ground truthing exercise being carried out by the Forestry Department, the fact is that legislatively there hasn't been any legislative action or gazetting of what would be in future known as the cockpit country protected area.
And for the latest in the world of business, here's Cody and Barrett.
A new gaming, bar and restaurant lounge is officially open at the Gulf View Hotel in Mandeville, Manchester. According to the Mayor of Mandeville, Donovan Mitchell, it's the first of its kind in central Jamaica, outside of the two entertainment capitals, Montego Bay and Kingston. He also commended the new owners, Peter and Kimberly Campbell, for the renovations to the hotel.
It's a new concept for them, and as I discussed with them when they just came to Mandeville, that we need to look at something new, something that the average man and woman can come one evening, sit even with their own families and enjoy a good evening.
And financial advisor Romario Sterling says while the Bank of Jamaica's decision to move the policy interest rate up to 2.5% could have negative implications for borrowing, there may be opportunities for investors.
When interest rates go up, it also goes up on investment assets such as bonds. So there's also an opportunity for consumers to benefit from higher rates of return on fixed income type assets. So that's one way to look at it. There's the potential that you can actually see higher rates of return on fixed income assets. So if you have that spare capital to invest, you could take advantage of that opportunity with rising interest rates locally.
And that's it for the Business Minute. I'm Cody Ann Barrett.
And here's a preview of what's coming up in this evening's Health Report.
In this evening's Health Report, we look at allergic rhinitis or nasal allergies.
Allergies in general, we say it's very common in Jamaica. When it was studied here in Jamaica, we found that about 27% of children have allergic rhinitis. And if you look at that, that's almost 1 in 4. And so you can say that is a very, very common problem. So you will find that you have children who they're constantly having a runny nose, and people might want to disengage and say it's COVID time, they don't want to be close to somebody with a runny nose. But we have to understand that a lot of these children, it's just allergies that they have, and that if you institute a proper management plan, you can get it under control.
That's the Health Report in Primetime News at 7. And now for today's healthy living tip. Don't touch or rub your nose. Wash your hands often with soap and water. Wash your bed linens and pillowcases in hot water and detergent to reduce allergens. Avoid allergic triggers, and if you smoke, quit.
With the top regional and international stories, here's Sandy Williams.
In the region, Barbados says travelers will be allowed to enter the island with a negative valid rapid PCR COVID-19 test result 24 hours prior to arrival, or a negative standard RT-PCR COVID-19 test result done within 3 days prior to their arrival. A government statement said the measure goes into effect on Friday, and that accepted tests include those which were taken at an accredited or recognized lab by a healthcare provider. The statement said lab tests, self-administered tests or home kits, and tests using saliva samples will not be accepted. On the international scene, French President Emmanuel Macron has warned that he intends to make life difficult for people in France who have not been vaccinated against COVID-19. France has one of the highest COVID vaccination rates in the EU, with more than 90% of the adult population double jabbed. However, Mr. Macron has highlighted an estimated 5 million people who remain unvaccinated. On Tuesday, the country recorded more than 270,000 daily new COVID cases, the highest number of daily infections recorded in France since the start of the pandemic. Meanwhile, scientists in France have identified a potentially worrying new variant, IHU, which has 46 mutations. 12 people living in southeastern France have been infected. Researchers say the first case was linked to a person with a travel history to Cameroon in Western Africa. Experts say the new variant is being monitored to evaluate how infectious or dangerous it could prove to be. And those were the top regional and international stories. I'm Sandy Williams.
And we now head to a quick break. When we come back, Renardo Brown will have the midday sports.
Welcome back. It's now time for your midday sports. Coach of the Manning School, Everton Tomlinson, says his team will not be holding back when they take on defending champions Kingston College in the quarterfinals of the ISA Champions Cup at Stets later today. Manning's surprised in the Doncaster Cup this season by reaching the semi-final and progressing to the last four unbeaten. However, KC were also unbeaten, going to the contest overwhelming favourites.
We approach every game with confidence. We train to win. We know every game has 3 results, and we want to end up with the positive result, which is to be successful. So we approach every game with confidence and with our confidence and what we have to do in terms of the offensive and the defensive football. We will display it. We will fight. We will show that we know how to execute, when, where, and how. As long as it's necessary, we're on the field to compete.
Now that game kicks off at 3:15. In the other game at Stets, St. Andrew Technical will look to become the first team to score against Dintil Technical this season when they meet at 1 p.m. At the Stadium East Field, Jamaica College will take on the high-flying Garfield Massey at 1, while Charlie Smith plays Clarendon College at 3:15. England's bowlers made good use of the new ball on a rain-affected day at the Sydney Cricket Ground, reducing Australia to 126 for 3 at stumps on day 1 of the 4th Ashes Test. With the game delayed due to rain, Australia won the toss and chose to bat first. Openers David Warner and Marcus Harris added 51 runs for the first wicket, with play regularly stopped due to rain. With overhead conditions assisting the bowlers, England's pacers were able to get into the Aussies' middle order, with Warner 30, Harris 38 and Marnus Labuschagne 28 the wickets to fall. Steve Smith 6 and Usman Khawaja 4 are the batsmen at the crease. James Anderson, Stuart Broad and Mark Wood have so far taken a wicket each for England. Australia have already retained the Ashes, holding an unbeatable 3-0 lead in the 5-game series. And Bangladesh are celebrating a first-ever victory on New Zealand soil after defeating the world number 1 by 8 wickets on Wednesday's final day of the first test at the Bay Oval. Set 40 to win, Bangladesh replied with 42 for 2 in their second innings for a famous victory. New Zealand were earlier bowled out in their second innings for 169 after resuming at 147 for 5. Ross Taylor took his overnight 37 to 40. Fast bowler Ibadat Hussain was the destroyer for the Bangladeshis, bagging 6 for 46, a career best there. Fellow pacer Taskin Ahmed supported with 3 for 36. This was Bangladesh's first win in 44 matches in New Zealand across all 3 formats and only their 6th overseas test win. It also ended a 17-match unbeaten home record in test for New Zealand. The world number 9 ranked test team are also playing without veteran players such as Shakib Al Hassan, Tamim Iqbal and Bam Abdullah. The second test begins on Sunday in Christchurch. And that is it for your midday sports report. Giovanni, it's back to you.
One of the best sports reports I've heard in a while. A really historic victory there for Bangladesh.
Yeah.
But you do know that the big story I'm speaking about is the high-flying Garfield.
I'm sure.
That's it for the Midday News. I'm Giovanni Dennis. Join us at 7 for Primetime News. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, have a good afternoon.